Greetings, folks. An update here on the WannaCry ransomware cyber attacks that have affected apparently upwards of 150 countries now. And according to Europe's police agency, Europol, they've released a statement that said the attack had already affected at least 100,000 organizations in 150 countries around the world, with the data networks infected by this malware that locks computer files unless a ransom is paid in the virtual currency Bitcoin. And I'll link you up to some of the other reports that I've done on this if you want to know more details on it. But here you see a piece talking about how, as I said, now the number has gone up from 100 countries to over 150 countries. Okay, and we're going to look at, in this video, and I'll link you up with everything I show you, we're going to look at the new attacks that happened in Asia, in many areas over there. And we're going to look at how, according to intelligence agencies, they're now throwing out that North Korea could be responsible for this. So we'll look at this very briefly here in this update, folks. But again, this is just more signs of the times, my friends. And so this next piece here talks about how experts have come out and warned of a second round of cyber attacks following Friday's massive hacking that occurred. And of course, we know it continued all weekend long here, now into Monday. It will be Tuesday tomorrow morning. And it says here that Friday's massive global cyber attack affected more than 300,000 computers in over 150 countries. Though some facilities were able to combat the first wave, British cybersecurity officials said Monday that new malware attacks are possible at a significant scale. And it mentions here in a quote from the Europol executive director, Rob Wainwright, and what he said in an interview, and this is his quote here. He says, "We've seen the rise of ransomware becoming the principal threat, I think, but this is something we haven't seen before." He said the global reach is unprecedented in history. Meanwhile, according to reports, the hackers collecting Bitcoin following these massive cyber attacks have apparently not yet withdrawn any of the digital currency from their accounts and could have a hard time doing so without getting caught, according to experts. And it says here, with the help of leaked software developed by the National Security Agency, the NSA, malicious ransomware called the Decryptor, or WannaCry, spread to over 150 countries, as we've seen. And I mean, how could they withdraw this money without getting caught? I mean, who knows who's behind it? Some people believe the NSA is actually behind it. The United States is actually behind it, and it's somewhat of a spyware, if you will, that's being sent worldwide. But again, there's many speculations out there, and of course, so we see here that they haven't apparently withdrawn anything. I've seen different reports, some claiming they made up to $500,000 in their account, some claiming only $70,000. But at the end of the day, when you're talking about a worldwide scale like this, making just $500,000 is not a lot. Okay? It seems like a lot to the average Joe like myself, but in the grand scheme of things, on a global scale, the potential was there for much more. I think initial reports said they could be making billions, so or millions of dollars. So we know that that's not the case, and they haven't withdrawn any ransom Bitcoin according to the surveillance. As a matter of fact, I mentioned at the beginning of the video how Asia was a victim of new attacks, and it mentions here, as you see in the headline of this piece, of course, which I'll link you up with, it says, "Asia hit by WannaCry virus at week's start, disrupting government services and businesses." And it mentions, Asian governments and businesses continued to be disrupted by the WannaCry ransomware on Monday, the media reported, according to official reports. says China, Japan, South Korea, and India have all seen an impact from the computer virus epidemic that erupted back on Friday. And some Chinese government sectors, including traffic, police, immigration, social security, and industry, were also hit by the virus, according to a report from Reuters. And according to local media, the social security departments in the south central city of Changsha and industrial associations in the city of Zhuhai in the country's south were affected as well. AP cited Chinese state media as saying that some 29,372 institutions have been affected by this virus so far. And I seen reports earlier today about how attacks occurred in Canada as well at the beginning of this week, so new attacks. And the report I had seen was talking about agencies in Saskatchewan that had to deal with it. So new attacks have happened. I mean, not to massive scales or anything like that, but it's already at a massive scale with 300,000 plus computers affected worldwide, with over 100,000 organizations involved worldwide. Not to mention it's in over 150 countries around the world. And I mean, we know what the damage it's caused to especially, you know, I mean, you could talk about many areas that experienced damage because of this, but I mean, look no further than over there in the UK with the hospital systems and whatnot, and it's still affecting that over there right now. They're still trying to, you know, come out from underneath the rubble, if you will, for lack of a better word, that was caused by this massive hack of this WannaCry ransomware malware. And so many people have often commented, especially on my videos, and saying, hey, they're going to blame it on Russia, right? Because Russia's the cyber hack in the election and all these accusations that have been flying around. And actually, Russian President Vladimir Putin had come out and he actually spoke on the matter. And here's the piece talking about that. As we see here with, it says, Russian President Vladimir Putin has stressed that his country had nothing to do with the recent global ransomware cyber attack that targeted some 150 countries. And Putin, while addressing reporters in the Chinese capital of Beijing on Monday, earlier today, he said in a quote, he said, Microsoft's management has made it clear that the virus originated from U.S. intelligence services. And so he's pointing towards the U.S. And he goes on to mention that, and he says here, once they're let out of the lamp, genies of this kind can do damage to their authors and creators, said Putin. And he goes on to say, so this question should be discussed immediately on a serious political level, and a defense needs to be worked out from such phenomena, the Russian president added. And earlier, Microsoft President Brad Smith, if you remember, noted that U.S. intelligence agencies such as the CIA and the NSA were to blame for the attack because they stockpiled malicious software codes, and which at the end of the day was exactly what was used by the hackers. And the NSA claims the software used in the attacks had been stolen from it. So, I mean, what better way to pass the blame and have everybody looking everywhere else than to say, hey, it was stolen from us, as I mentioned in a previous video. I mean, who knows? Maybe it was. I don't know for sure, but, you know, many people have speculated. And I also mentioned that about how cybersecurity researchers and intelligence officials have come out and stated that links are pointing to North Korea potentially. And so here's a couple pieces on that. And as you see here in this first piece from Reuters, it says that researchers see possible North Korea link to global cyber attack. It says here, cybersecurity researchers have found technical evidence they say could link North Korea with the global WannaCry ransomware cyber attack that has infected more than 300,000 computers in upwards of 150 countries since Friday. It says Symantec and Kaspersky Lab said on Monday, so earlier today, that some code in an earlier version of the WannaCry software had also appeared in programs used by the Lazarus Group, which researchers from many companies have identified as a North Korea-run hacking operation. And it says here, this is the best clue we have seen to date as to the origins of WannaCry, according to Kaspersky Lab researcher Kurt Baumgartner in what he told Reuters News. And since that report, here's one of the other reports that have come out talking about this, and I'll link you up to it. I won't get into it in its entirety, but basically it says the same thing, how intelligence officials and private security experts have come out and stated that new digital clues point to the North Korean-linked hackers as likely suspects in the sweeping ransomware attacks that have crippled computer systems around the world. And so we're seeing accusations potentially being thrown to North Korea. We've seen Russian President Vladimir Putin come out and release a statement. Asia was hit by new attacks. There were new attacks here in Canada. The WannaCry hackers, if you want to call them that, or these shadow brokers, apparently have not withdrawn any ransom of the Bitcoin, according to the surveillance reports. And experts came out and they've been warning of a new round of these cyber attacks. And of course, we see the new statistics of how, it has now spread to over 300,000 computers around the world, affecting over 100,000 organizations around the world and in over 150 countries around the world. So this thing is unprecedented. And again, just one of the many forms of warfare we're going to see in these times, my friends. You got cyber warfare, economic warfare, chemical warfare, biological warfare. I mean, there are many forms. You could throw weather warfare in there, for those of you who know about the truth about geoengineering and things of that nature. But again, at the end of the day, my friends, it's all more signs of the times. So I'll link you guys up with the things I showed you here in this update. Just wanted to do a quick report and follow up on this. The links are below, guys. God bless you and much love. The attack had already affected at least 100,000 organizations in 150 countries around the world, with the data networks infected by this malware that locks computer files unless a ransom is paid in the virtual currency Bitcoin. And I'll link you up to some of the other reports that I've done on this if you want to know more details on it. But here you see a piece talking about how, as I said, now the number has gone up from 100 countries to over 150 countries. Okay, and we're going to look at, in this video, and I'll link you up with everything I show you, we're going to look at the new attacks that happened in Asia, in many areas over there, and we're going to look at how, according to, greetings folks, an update here on the WannaCry ransomware cyber attacks that have affected apparently upwards of 150 countries now, and according to Europe's police agency, Europol, they've released a statement that said intelligence agencies, they're now throwing out that North Korea could be responsible for this. So we'll look at this very briefly here in this update, folks. But again, this is just more signs of the times, my friends. And so this next piece